Through this bill, the governor's office wants to send a strong message to gang members. If you come after our children and endanger our communities, we are coming after you.
The governor promised to come down hard on gangs in Georgia, and the Senate today approved a measure to toughen penalties for recruiting members. Good evening. Welcome to Lawmakers on this legislative day 17. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. I'm not in the studio because I tested positive for COVID-19 over the weekend following an out-of-town trip. So I'm isolated at home, but I'm feeling good and I'm very happy to join the show virtually. I'm also grateful to the team at GPB for making this happen. On Lawmakers today, we'll talk to the lead sponsor of the Georgia Life Act of 2019, which effectively banned abortions once fetal cardiac activity is detected. Also joining us, the legislator who wants to hold the state financially responsible for unwanted pregnancies that can't be terminated under Georgia's 6-week abortion ban. And on the show, 2 lawmakers who want to end what some call transcript ransom. It's when colleges withhold transcripts from students who have outstanding balances at the school. But first, let's get a wrap-up of today's news under the Gold Dome from Capitol correspondent Rochelle Ritchie.
Hi, Donna. Well, guns, gangs, and family benefits were just some of the issues discussed here today at the Capitol.
It was a footloose morning in the House as the winner of a dance-off between the House and the Senate showed off the trophy.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, if you were not at the first ever House versus Senate dance-off, you missed a good time. Our friend in the hallway, Terry Lindell, sponsored the event. And these gentlemen and our spouses joined us for a really good time, and we had fun and saw a lot of funny things.
Following that brief bout of boogie fever, it was business as usual. House Bills 129 and 139 are now on the way to the Senate after being introduced and passed. House Bill 129 was passed, and the first bill passed by Representative Sue Hong.
This is a good bill. It is one of the governor's initiatives, and I'm happy to be carrying it on behalf of the governor.
The bill will expand temporary assistance for needy families, also known as TANF, to pregnant women. And while the bill passed unanimously, some members say it is imperative to review and revise TANF requirements to ensure it's an option for families living in poverty.
To qualify for TANF benefits, this parent must earn less than $784 a month and have countable assets less than $1,000. Calculate this out, and this amounts to an annual salary of less than $9,408 per year. This means that 60% of very impoverished parents earning below the federal poverty level earn too much money to qualify for TANF assistance. 30 years ago, a nominal TANF grant for a family of 3 was $280. In 2023, now, a nominal TANF grant for a family of 3 is still $280. So because this has not been updated in more than 3 decades, the math simply does not add up.
Also passing, House Bill 139 to prevent the disclosure of certain personally identifiable information of non-sworn law enforcement agency employees. Under the bill, employees who are not sworn in and are official witnesses in criminal proceedings will not be compelled to disclose their home address or telephone number, but can furnish their work location and phone number instead. The Senate took up the issue of gangs and gang member recruitment. Senate Bill 44 would implement mandatory minimum sentences for any gang member who recruits someone into a gang.
While all efforts to combat criminal street gang activities have had a tremendous impact throughout the state of Georgia, more must be done to keep our children away from a life of crime and keep our community safe. Through this bill, the governor's office wants to send a strong message to gang members. If you come after our children and endanger our communities, we are coming after you.
The new law would make the offense a felony and mandate a 5-year minimum sentence and would increase to 10 years for recruiting a minor.
You might be expected as a child sex trafficking victim to attend to 15 to 20 men or individual acts per day. Now that's directly from the advocates who work with these kids every day in a clinic. If you can recruit a friend, I mean, this is awful, but it's real. If you can recruit somebody your age to take even 5 of those away per day. That is an act of survival.
The senator from the 50th began by saying that cracking down on gangs is a priority of the governor. Well, protecting those who are victims of sex trafficking is a priority of First Lady Kemp. And so while I'm not the First Lady's floor leader, I am someone who happens to believe that she's right, that women and girls and children who are being trafficked need to be treated as victims and not criminals. So what this amendment does is it says that if you are under 18 and you are a victim of sex trafficking, then you cannot be prosecuted under this legislation.
And not punish low-level members more than gang leaders.
By virtue of this legislation, that's, my friends, what we're enabling to happen. Those who are at the top of the pyramid can get their time cut by telling on someone at the bottom of the pyramid that may not have anything to do with it. And so those who deserve a second chance or another opportunity won't get it, and the people who are actually the violent, most criminal offenders with the most information to share will receive a reduction in their sentence because it's prudent for justice.
I oppose both amendments. Right now, the mandatory minimums do not apply to children. If you are a child recruiting another child, you'll go through the juvenile system and will be vacated that way. These mandatory minimums do not apply unless a 7 deadly is associated with them. And with that, Mr. President, I ask for favorable consideration of this legislation and oppose all amendments. Thank you.
In the end, both amendments failed, and the bill was passed in its original form, 31-22. And if you are one of the many people who have had a catalytic converter stolen from your vehicle, Senate Bill 60 will hopefully prevent that from happening again. The bill would make it illegal to purchase or sell catalytic converters without being licensed or properly vetted. The bill also applies to copper wiring and other metals. That bill passed 50-2. And Democrats held a press conference this afternoon detailing their persistent efforts to push for more gun control and safety, a mission that has been met with resistance from Republicans.
It is extremely disheartening to me that of all the issues before these bodies this year, the most partisan issue is gun safety, something that denies the facts of what my constituents, and I believe their constituents, care about, is the senseless, preventable death of children and innocent adults across our state.
That is my Capitol Report. Donna, back to you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. Currently, Georgia colleges can withhold a student's transcript when the student owes the school money. Today's guests want to change that. Joining us are Democratic Representative Marvin Lim of Norcross, Gwinnett County, and Republican Representative Beth Camp of Concord in Pike County. Welcome to Lawmakers, to both of you. Thank you. Representative Lim, I'm going to start with you. What is HB 39 and what led you to sponsor this legislation?
Thank you, Donna. So HB 39 essentially states that institutions of higher education in Georgia can't withhold official transcripts from students who want to be able to send those transcripts to prospective employers or current employers. It really takes a bite out of what I've been calling a chicken and egg problem. In order to be able to pay off your student debt, you need a job, you need income, and yet so many fields these days, from construction to healthcare, other fields that require licensing, are requiring these transcripts in order for someone to be able to hold positions in those professions. And therefore, if you're withholding them, you're preventing people from getting a job and not enabling them to pay their student debt. This, to me, I was inspired by both the workforce crisis that we know we're facing, as well as the student debt crisis. And there are many possible solutions to either and both of those, but this really takes, I think, something that three of my Republican colleagues and 2 of us Democrats believe is a problem that we can fix in this particular manner.
Yeah, it is bipartisan. Representative Camp, why did you become involved as a co-sponsor?
Well, being someone who has graduated from 3 different higher ed facilities, institutions, I know firsthand that if someone told me I owed $25 from a degree I got 20 plus years ago, how would I be able to prove that I owe $25? It's a due process thing. If I never received a bill, if I never received any information that I owed this money, how would I know for a fact I actually did owe it? I'm taking the word of the university that's telling me this. And there are many people, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have a job and you're applying for a job, $25 may seem nominal if you're making good money, but if you're unemployed, $25 might be the same as $2,500. So I think it's just a due process, and the fact that you can't graduate from University System of Georgia School without paying tuition. So it's not tuition, and it's not anything related to getting the degree, because they will not give you a degree otherwise. So it's simply a situation where there is something that has been added to your docket, and now the university is trying to collect.
And 180,000 people might be affected by this, Representative Lim. So you're getting the support that you think you need to pass this?
I'm certainly getting support. You mentioned that 180,000 number of people that are potentially impacted by this practice. Now, to be clear, this bill is narrowly tailored to those that want to be able to send their transcripts to their employers, potential employers. It doesn't talk about other scenarios. I crafted it narrowly in order to be able to get that support, in order to be able to target that, as I call the chicken and egg problem. So even with that particular kind of narrowing, there's a lot of support because there are so many people in this position throughout Georgia.
Okay, so we'll keep abreast of that one and let people know how it does. I want to get to both of you. You both have bills that deal with housing issues in different ways. So Representative Camp, let's start with you. You have HB 283, and it deals with changing how taxes are imposed and collected on newly manufactured single-family structures. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's pretty simple. Right now, a manufactured home, when you purchase it, you're paying actually the tax on materials and on labor, which is different than a stick-built home. A stick-built home, you only pay taxes on the materials, or the builder only pays taxes on the materials used, not on the labor. And by making more parity between those two, it would actually reduce the price of a manufactured home, which hopefully would allow for more individuals to be able to get in this home. We have a huge workforce housing issue right now. The average stick-built home is costing around $200 a square foot. So you're looking, a 1,200 square foot home potentially could cost $240,000. That is not an entry-level home for many, and it's not an attainable home for many. And in many rural areas, and well, even in the city of Lima, I have found out modular homes or mobile homes are another option for housing. And people should have the opportunity to live in where they want to live, in a safe home, and not pay more for it simply because it's manufactured.
Okay, so how are you feeling about that bill at this point?
I'm feeling fairly good about it. It's going to Ways and Means. A fiscal note has been ordered, so we'll find out what it's going to cost the state, because there will be some differences in the taxation. So we're going to find out that, and hopefully we'll be having a hearing on it soon, so we can get all the bugs out.
Okay, Representative Lim, you have a bipartisan bill, HB 40, and that deals with the excise tax on hotel rooms and other lodgings. What's that all about?
Yes, this bill addresses kind of a different end of the continuum of housing than Representative Camp's bill. She's tackling that very important problem of many first-time home buyers being priced out because of the market. My bill is essentially regarding homelessness. We know that there's been an uptick. You see that in statistics, or if you just open your eyes in certain places throughout Georgia and Atlanta. What this bill does is essentially allows those nonprofits that are rehousing people who are homeless into hotels and motels using HUD vouchers to be able to exempt themselves as nonprofits from local hotel motel excise taxes. So it's really taking a crack at that homelessness part of the housing problem that I think all of us, Republican or Democrat, agree that we are facing here in Georgia.
So do you have a fiscal note on that?
I don't have a fiscal note on that because that's actually only impacting local taxes, and Georgia Municipal Associations already told me that they have no problem with that. So I'm hopeful that that bill will move.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your other bill, HB 344, that deals with landlord duties regarding rental properties. What would that bill do?
So this bill would essentially require or better enable us to hold accountable landlords that are not ensuring that tenants have livable properties. When we're talking about housing, there's so much said about affordability, but I've really been focusing as well on livability. Are you able to live in a safe apartment complex? Do you have running water? Do you have no mold and adequate air quality? What this bill does, again, is essentially allows us to impose statutorily specific requirements on all of those and other fronts in order to have the landlords meet those responsibilities that I think common sense would agree or would say is what constitutes livable housing.
Yeah. Representative Camp, you're in Concord in Pike County, and I think there is the tendency to think that these housing issues aren't a problem in the smaller areas. What are you seeing?
Well, I would dare say they're probably worse than in more rural areas. Economic development, a lot of times, is dependent upon their workforce being able to have housing. So if we have a great economic development plan and we pitch it, but there's nowhere for anyone to live, we have a huge problem. And in more rural areas, or you get a little bit outside the perimeter, apartment complexes are not as plentiful. And, you know, the home values have skyrocketed as people have moved out. You know, we say 1 million people moved into Georgia. Well, a lot of people sold their homes in the metro area and they moved a little bit further out. They could get a little more for their money. And so it's impacted the local housing markets as well. So I agree. I mean, going back to Representative Lim's last bill that we just discussed, you know, it's very important that no matter where someone lives, it is a safe home. So I look forward to discussing that in committee as well.
Well, we're going to keep up with all of these bills and let people know how they go. I want to thank you both for coming on the show, even though I'm not there in the studio with you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, we'll hear from lawmakers on each side of the abortion issue.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Kirsten had a lot of courage. She fought for Black culture.
They could have killed you. You're exactly what we need right now.
Oh my God.
What is this?
She was poisoned.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front line
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
One of the easiest ways to support GPB is to become a monthly GPB sustainer. Your monthly support continues automatically month after month and supports not only the great programming that you love on GPB, but also our efforts in the community. GPB is committed to provide a trusted space for lifelong learning on the air, digitally and in person all across Georgia. All this is made possible with your monthly support. And we can't do it without you, so please donate right now at gpb.org/give. And thanks.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. We're going to talk now about abortion with lawmakers on each side of the issue. Georgia law bans abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected around 6 weeks, but the ACLU challenged the law's constitutionality, and Georgia's Supreme Court is scheduled to hear oral arguments at the end of March. Joining us for the discussion are the lead sponsor of Georgia's law, Republican Senator Ed Setzler of Ackworth, and Democratic Representative Darshan Kendrick of Lithonia, who has a bill called the Georgia Pro-Birth Accountability Act. Welcome, both of you, to Lawmakers.
Donna, great being with you.
So, Senator Sessler, let's start with you. The Georgia General Assembly passed your bill, HB 481. By the way, to remind everybody, you were in the House of Representatives at that time. So they passed it in 2019. The governor signed it into law, but a Fulton County Superior Court judge struck down that ruling last summer. Now we're waiting on the Georgia Supreme Court to decide on the law. In the meantime, the law stays in effect. What are your thoughts on what has happened since 2019, and how do you think the court will rule?
Well, Donna, the Living Infants Fairness and Equality Act really struck this balance. It recognized the very, very difficult circumstances women find themselves in, and balance that with the basic right to life of an unborn child. When you think about the lives of small children that you can literally hold in your hand, the Life Act struck a balance that recognized that life begins at conception, but recognized this broad consensus, I think, across Georgians that if a child has a beating heart about 6 months, or about 6 weeks after being conceived, shouldn't they be protected from abortion? And that's what the Life Act did. It passed the House. In fact, it not only dealt with the issue of abortion, but recognized the humanity of the child. And that for the first time ever in Georgia, gave moms access to child support when they're pregnant, gave parents access to tax exemptions for the child, that it was being carried inside mom. So it was a broad-based bill that recognized the humanity of the child in a way that I think recognized the science and the common sense of life in utero. That was recognized by the courts. There were a couple of roadblocks along the way, but I think the common sense and the balance of that jives with the common sense of everyday Georgians, and I think we'll see it upheld in our court here in the coming months.
So you're feeling pretty confident about everything?
I am. It's one of those things as you talk to folks really across the political spectrum, folks outside of politics, but ordinary people, the common sense of protecting a child that has a beating heart is widely recognized in Georgia, and I think it's something that all Georgians will be proud of over time.
All right. Representative Kendrick, you filed a bill even before the session started to address issues you believe are outgrowths of the bill. So tell us about HB 1.
Thanks, Donna. So HB 1 is my Birth Accountability Act. And essentially what it does is it requires the state of Georgia to pay women both health care expenses as well as lost wages and child care up to the age of 18. We know that HB 481 included a mandate, and I believe that mandate of forcing women to give birth was an unfunded mandate. And so really HB 1 is an opportunity for the state of Georgia to put money behind their belief that most Georgians are pro-life and require the state to pay for those expenses for both the mother and the child.
Can you be more specific about those expenses?
So they can include child care expenses, which we know are high. It also includes setting up a trust fund for that child to go to college afterwards. It includes any lost wages from that mother, because we know that women that are forced to give birth usually are penalized economically and not able to get the jobs that really highlight their full potential. I mean, it's a list of items that I think the state of Georgia should be required to pay if they are going to force women to give birth.
Now, Senator Sessler, what are your thoughts on Representative Kendrick's bill? I mean, what can the state do to help women who have unwanted pregnancies that can't be terminated under the 6-week abortion ban?
Well, Donna, as I'd said before, Georgia and the Life Act recognize the humanity of the child. We're the only state in the nation that makes dad pay child support for the child as mom's carrying the child to delivery. Parents get full tax exemption. We have automatic enrollment in Medicaid. So if a mom is pregnant, she's presumptively enrolled to be able to get benefits while she's carrying the child. We have 1 year of postpartum benefits for moms. We have 18 years of the Children's Health Insurance Program that's very generous. We spend $10,000 per year for kids in our public school system. We have a Hope Scholarship for kids with the B average to be able to get a free college education. I think Georgia does a very good job of celebrating the life of kids. I mean, I appreciate the interest. I think there's debates about what's the appropriate level of spending. But I think celebrating the life of the child in utero is what we need to be focused on as a state. And I'm hopeful that Representative Kendrick can celebrate with me these lives. The priceless value of a child that you can hold in your hand that's in utero. And I think the discussion about the proper way to celebrate that and come alongside moms is something the Kemp administration has led on. and it's something that I think Georgians can be proud of, and I think hopefully we can have this conversation moving forward in a productive and serious-minded way, not in a way that's trying to make a point, but a serious-minded way that celebrates the life of these precious children.
Representative Kendrick, your response to what he just said?
This is a serious bill, so I thoroughly expect every person that is pro-life and conservative to run to sign HB 1 because it is a serious bill. You know, the other side talks all the time about unfunded mandates, but if you think about it, forcing a woman to carry a child or children is an unfunded mandate because even though we have those types of services, there's so much cost that goes into making sure that a child grows up to be a productive citizen. And Georgia is only doing a small part of that. And so this is a serious bill. I thoroughly expect a hearing, and I expect every conservative to run down and sign this bill because it's a pro-life bill. It is exactly what they are asking for, which is to treat every life as a pro-life supporter. And so I think this is a serious bill.
Okay, so it is a Republican-controlled state House and Senate, and it's an uphill battle. Wouldn't you agree, though?
It is only if we are not truly a pro-life state. Again, this is a pro-life bill, so if it is an uphill battle, it's because pro-lifers are making it an uphill battle because it is a pro-life bill.
I gotta ask you, Senator Setzler, do you plan to introduce or sponsor any bills dealing with abortion this legislative session?
Well, you know, Donna, there's been some discussion about it. You know, when you see the acts of the Biden administration that's seeking to turn everybody's neighborhood pharmacy into an abortion clinic, to be able to dole out abortion pills, it does shock the conscience. There's been some discussion about addressing that issue. I do think that'll be addressed in Georgia. I think there is some reticence, you know, with the case pending before the state Supreme Court here in March. There's been some discussions about this. But I think as we step back, you know, we ask the question to ourselves, you know, when you see the child in an ultrasound, you take a child that's 8 or 10 weeks along in an ultrasound machine, you show that to a group of kindergarten kids, and you say, what are you looking at here? You know, a group of kindergartners can say, that's a baby. We recognize science, law, and common sense tells us that. I'm hopeful that we can celebrate what we've done with the Living Infants Fairness and Equality Act. You know, moms can now, that are pregnant, can drive in HOV lanes in their cars. There's just there's a recognition that life in the womb is valuable. You know, we as a nation have lost 63 million human beings. You know, in the last 50 years, of every 4 people that are conceived, 1 was lost to abortion. That is a heck of a legacy to overcome. You know, we're taking the steps. I think we want to be common sense and responsive to what's happening out there in the legal system. And I think the Biden administration's cynical effort to turn your neighborhood pharmacy into an abortion clinic is a step in the wrong direction that you may see some action on, if not this session, certainly by next session.
Okay, we only have a little bit of time, but Representative Kendrick, I promised that I'd give you some time to talk briefly about you have 3 technology bills that you're introducing, and 1, you'll be involved in a technology conference coming up. So can you talk about that briefly?
Yeah, I'll talk about 2 of them. So HB 14 is a bill that would give a workforce development tax credit to small businesses to train and retain in the technology industry. We know there's a severe gap in Georgia between technology jobs and those that are able to fulfill those jobs. So that is in Ways and Means. And then HB 15 would create a specific broadband task force to really focus on how it affects communities of color and underprivileged communities. We know because of COVID-19 that there are certain communities within our state that don't have the same access to broadband as other places do. And so we're going to present those ideas this Thursday at my 4th Technology Tech for All Policy Conference that I've hosted with the mayor for a very long time. And we'll have some nonprofits who are working in the workforce development space to talk a little bit more about that.
All right. We'll have to have you back on to talk about it, because right now I appreciate you being on the show, both of you. Thanks for coming on. That does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow, Valentine's Day, for Legislative Day 18. Have a good night.